What is up guys, Alex from Lakey Wargames here and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be taking a look and fixing 3 of Nighthaunt's worst units. Alrighty guys, so welcome to today's video, and today I thought it would be fun to try something a little bit different, and we're going to be looking at what I would consider the 3 commonly called worst units within the Nighthaunt Battletome. Now, I'm not necessarily saying these units can't work or there's not ways to make them better than they are, but these are the 3 units that you would often see called out and most complaints for, and I would also say that they are fairly justified because their Warscrolls aren't exactly the strongest. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a look at these 3 units, and we're going to look at their Warscrolls, and we're going to see what each unit is supposed to be doing, what they actually currently do, and what we would need to change on the Warscrolls in order to fix them and make them more of a playable / usable unit on the table. Now, before we get too far into this video, I would just like to remind everyone that we now have a Lakey Wargames Discord up and running. Link is in the description below, you can find it in there. It's free to join, and we have rooms for everything from 40k to all the specialist games, all the Age of Sigmar factions. We talk all things tactics and hobby related, showing off what you are currently working on, and just having a general good time in the general chat. So if you'd like to join that and take part and discuss things further, then please feel free to join that, or leave your comments down below what you think about these topics. Is there something different that you would change to these units, or do you think there are different Warscrolls in the book that we should be changing instead of these 3? So let's jump on into our first of the 3, and the first scroll that I want to look at today is the Glae Wraith Stalker. So first thing up on the list of things we're going to be looking at is what are they supposed to do. Now, Glae Wraith Stalkers are supposed to be a kind of relentless hunter type unit that chases down a particular prey within a battle. Now, I do actually quite like the Warscroll of the Glae Wraith Stalkers. I think they're obviously a suboptimal choice points for points. You are usually better off taking something else, but I don't think they are completely terrible. If we look at them, obviously they boast the nice 8-inch move that all Nighthaunt generally do. They have only the 1 attack, hitting on a 4, which is kind of a downside, but they do have a nice 3+ to wound with a point of rend, and they deal 2 damage. Now, the main thing that they have going for them is they have a musician within their unit, and he adds +1 to all the charge rolls while he is alive. They also have a lovely ability which is at the start of the first hero phase. If this unit is on the battlefield, you can pick 1 enemy unit to be its prey. After this unit makes a normal move, if this unit finishes that move closer to its prey, you can add 3 to charge rolls for this unit to the next hero phase. So already we're looking at a unit that sounds absolutely awesome. You get to pick an enemy to be their prey, and when you move towards that prey, for that turn you are now basically +4 to charge as long as your musician is alive, and you're going and you've moved towards that prey. The nice thing about this is it doesn't specify that they have to charge the target that is their prey, but they just had to have made a normal move and ended closer to the prey to gain that bonus. So as long as they're getting closer to the unit that's their target, they're always getting that nice boost to charge. And again, looking at that weapon profile, it's not beyond anything. They have elite as well, so they can issue commands themselves. So it's not beyond actually making that a semi-decent profile there. If you use all-out attack, which again, because of that elite, they can put it on themselves, so they don't need to be babysat by a hero. Having 3s, -1 and 2 damage on a unit as cheap as Glae Wraith Stalkers is actually pretty nice. Once you put in the ability to basically get +4 to charge, it can actually be really, really helpful. Now, one of the things that really does suck about this is they lose out on using the Vanishing Phantasms, or as we older Nighthaunt players, you often hear us say, is putting things into the underworld, because that's what it used to be in the old Battletome before this one. But it's when at the start of the game you can take your units off the table, put them into reserves, and then you can teleport them in later on. To be able to use that point of death and get the +3 to charge rolls, you have to be able to be on the battlefield and pick someone in your first hero phase, so there's no coming out of the underworlds for this unit. And that's really a big kicker, because they should be that kind of nice stalking unit that can come off the table, come on via reserves, and then be able to just ambush that prey, that target, when they are sort of least expecting it. Obviously there are tons of things in the game that can already do this kind of nice ambush shenanigans. You've got lots of things in like the Beastman book, Stormcast Eternals. You think of Annihilators, when they come down, the turn that they come out of reserve, they get to re-roll all their charges. There's a Lord Imperatant in the same army, then they can come down within 7 instead of 9, so a 7-inch charge re-rolling is very decent odds. So I don't think it would be too busted to have a Nighthaunt unit able to teleport in on the table and then be able to gain some nice bonuses to charge. Obviously they're still going to be 9 inches away. I mean, maybe they don't need to be +4, maybe just get rid of maybe rewrite the Musician to do something a little bit different, but a +3 charge, you know, giving them that 6-inch charge wouldn't be completely terrible, and it would play into that kind of nice feeling of Nighthaunt are a threat, an unstoppable threat that you can't really slow down. Being able to sort of come out of nowhere and catch you off by surprise would be something that's just really fitting for Nighthaunt. So I think that would be really nice. Obviously, a nice thing about this unit as well is that where they only come in 4s, reinforced, they only go into 8s, so they have the sort of problem that Mirmorn Banshees have, where they're a really fragile unit. So it's another reason why I don't think allowing them to be able to charge bonus out of reserve wouldn't be terrible, because they'll come out, and if they fail to kill their target, they're really easy to just turn around and wipe with something like a screening unit. Again, things like screens, you could just screen them out if you know that your opponent's got them, and it plays into that sort of nice mindset game, back and forth, which can be a lot of fun. So I think changing point of death to just literally be able to allow them to gain that bonus as long as they are closer to their prey or something like that. If they get within a certain range of their prey, then maybe it sort of triggers and they'll be able to do a charge like that. Another thing that I would love to see on the Glae Stalkers is to change the range from 1 inch on their glaives to like a 2-inch reach. How the hell the Hunter's Glaive, you look at that, you look at the model, you look at the length of the blade and the handle on that mini, has the same reach as a chill dagger from a Banshee. I will never know. So yeah, I think having them in 4s, reinforced up to 8s, and not battle line, so they can't be anything more than that, is fine. Like I said, they do decent damage, but if they could just charge out of reserve and have a 2-inch reach, they would be fantastic and amazing at what they do. Maybe it would make them a super popular choice if that was the case. So next up on our list is we are going to take a look at everybody's least favourite hero, and that is the poor Scriptor Mortis. Now, he's supposed to be someone who's sort of like overseeing the battle and sentencing and judging souls to be damned throughout the battle, as well as recording sort of the ongoings of the Nighthaunt conquests and then reporting them back to Nagash. Now the way that it works currently is it's a very sort of annoying rule to read and get your head around to start with, but you're picking someone in your hero phase. You can only pick one model, one enemy hero that does not have the death keyword, and is visible to the Scriptor Mortis to be the Judge Soul, and at the start of each of your subsequent hero phases, so not the turn that you pick him, but it'll be the turn after, the Judge Soul and this unit are on the battlefield. You must make a judgment roll for the Judge Soul, and you cannot record the name of a different Judge Soul in that phase. In addition, if the battle would end and the Judge Soul and this unit are on the battlefield, then before the battle ends, you must make a judgment roll for the Judge Soul. So it's basically, you pick one enemy hero that doesn't have the death keyword, then in the subsequent phase you make a judgment roll, which we haven't gotten even how to do that yet, and then you can't pick anyone else while those two units are on the table. You must always make a judgment roll against them, and if the battle ends and the target is still alive, then you do get to make an additional roll at the end. The judgment roll itself is to roll a dice, and if the roll is less than the current battle round, the Judge Soul suffers 2d6 mortal wounds. The same unit cannot be picked to be a Judge Soul more than once in the same battle. A lot of things going on there that make this not competitively viable as a choice. One of the big things, of course, is that you have to pick a target that doesn't have the death keyword. In the meta right now, upon recording of this, OBR and SOULBLIGHT are absolutely stomping away at the top of the table. So most of the big factions you're coming against, if you're trying to play competitively, are going to be death. So not only is a quarter of all the Grand Alliances just completely outright useless against, but as of right now in the top meta, yeah, it's not good against any of the armies that are the armies that you need to be beating. So straight away I would just ditch that to fix this. I mean, it's a cool idea, but just ditch the death keyword, just make him be able to judge anyone. And anything that has to roll against the battle round is always kind of one of those, it feels useless until it's too late. Like by the time you get to battle round 4, 5, when you actually are in odds favour of rolling this, yeah, it's too late. Like you've either won or you've lost the game by that point. So you're either just winning harder, or you know, it's just not going to be enough to save you if he's not already dead by that point in the game. So I always think rolling against the battle round for a unit that's supposed to be doing something like this is just not very good. Certain things where, you know, you can do it once per game, like banners or something where they plant something down, you get an insane buff, can be quite nice because it can help you pull off some sort of steadfast last stand if you're buffing like in a big AoE once per game. But yeah, I just generally think anything that rolls against the battle round, especially like this, where it's supposed to be something consistent and ongoing, just yeah, not a very good odds, and that's just kind of what makes him horrible. I spoke before, I did a video quite a while ago where I was talking about what units I would like to see Nighthaunt have in future, and I spoke about how I would love to see the Casket of Souls from Warhammer Fantasy, probably even less likely now that we know that Old World and Tomb Kings are coming back, but I would have loved to have seen something like a Casket of Souls, not just outright copied and pasted, but incorporated the element that made the casket what it was into AOS. So that was a thing that you used to put it down in your deployment, and anything that could be draw line of sight to the Casket of Souls, you would then roll against it and do a little bit of damage. And I think the Scriptor Mortis is kind of has the potential to be that for Nighthaunt, rather than just picking one unit and rolling this sort of horrible judgment roll against the battle round. It could be something like the Scriptor Mortis can draw line of sight to every unit, like anything on the table, then maybe you roll against its bravery, just a normal 2d6, and then if you beat the bravery, maybe they just take d3 mortal wounds. d3 is not a complete harsh punishment, it's not as swingy as 2d6 mortal wounds, because 2d6 can be anywhere from 2 to 12, so obviously that's huge, whereas d3 is just like a nice little chip damage, kind of board wide. You could play around it, like I said, if it's line of sight, so if it's things you can hide behind, sort of line of sight blocking terrain, etc, etc, there's ways to counter it. And even if you can't, like I said, d3 is not the worst thing in the world, and beating bravery is not always that easy. A lot of things in the game sort of having that 7 or 8 bravery. Obviously a lot of death armies, well, all the death armies are at 10, so it's going to probably play more favourable into things like destruction, but I think Nighthaunt should be one of the armies, if any, that plays into that kind of bravery bomb, bravery damage game, if anything. And maybe we could change the what do we have right now? We've got the thing where units are terrified if they're within 3 inches of the Aura of Dread, I think it was called, where units are considered terrified if they're within 3 inches of another Nighthaunt unit. Maybe you can get bonuses to this roll against their bravery if they are terrified, so you get +1 or +2, and that could be really nice. And maybe if board wide, everything board wide line of sight is too strong, it could just be pick 3 units that you can draw line of sight to, roll against their bravery, pluses if they're terrified, d3 mortal wounds. Boom. Now the Scriptor Mortis is effective against everything, it can be utilised against different targets, and there's ways to buff it and play around with a allegiance ability that Nighthaunt already has, which is terrifying units and getting in up close, and the Scriptor Mortis can sort of hang back and just do what he does. And I think that would make him very cool and very usable, and yeah, I'd personally quite like to see that, and it would fulfill my little thing of kind of having a mini Casket of Souls, although a very cool model. I mean, he's no casket, but yeah, it would be nice to have something back like that, and I think he could fill that role, and obviously that was a lot more useful than what he currently does. So yeah, that's what I think for the Scriptor Mortis. Number 3 on my list, and this one is, I was torn between choosing these guys and something else, so we're going to be looking at the Craven Throne Guard. Now the reason that I say that is because I was going to pick the Briar Queen and the Thorns of the Briar Queen, which is the Underworld's warband, But obviously Craven Throne Guard are a lot more in the limelight because they're really cool models. A lot of people like them, want to be utilizing and using them. But also because Craven Throne Guard are now actually not that bad. They have had the benefit of the big points drop. Obviously everything across the Nighthaunt range is currently dropping in points. It's kind of Games Workshop's mini short-term fix, which I'm not really a fan of, things like that. You see it a lot in Destruction at the moment, especially with like all the Uruk stuff and like the Cruel Boys. They're just getting so cheap, there's so many of them on the table that their win rates are going up, but that it's not fixing the problems in the faction. They're just now so numerous that, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's just like a plaster over a cut that needs a stitch. So Craven Throne Guard are a sharpshooter unit that hunts the heroes and targets of Kurdos Valentian in the lore. Kurdos obviously wanting to run up and smash things in the face with his mace, and the Craven Throne Guard are like, no sir, don't lift a finger, we're going to shoot them for you. But then that annoys Kurdos because Kurdos wants to be getting all the glory. But yeah, so he's the king that's never allowed to fulfill his thing of killing stuff, which Craven Throne Guard kind of do, I guess, maybe. I mean, they are a shooting unit, but they're not very effective at actually killing things, whereas Kurdos is an absolute murder machine. So yeah, I'll let you guys decide whether they fit the bill of what they're supposed to do. But yeah, not everything should be as powerful as it is in the lore, because if that was the case, from every Battletome's perspective, every unit in the game would be broken forever. So yeah, we'll leave that one there. But people are liking them more these days because they're cheap. They're great at taking a little 5-man units. You pop them in the underworld, so the vanishing phantasms, so they go off board, and it's just 5 little idiots that only cost 80 points. Boom, they come down, they take an objective, and now your opponent has to commit to wiping those 5 guys off the objective. And if you put them down on like a back objective, then you can put your guys, like your Grimghast Reapers, Bladegeist Revenants, whatever your flavour of Nighthaunt is, in front, and then the Craven Throne Guard can just go pew 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 and just harass damage from the back while still scoring you that objective. So they are great for doing that. But again, I think that is purely because of the points drops that they kept receiving, so they now fulfill that role, whereas before, when they were slightly more expensive and they were supposed to be this unit that can shoot enemies that they can't draw line of sight to because they've got the spectral bolts, they're a bit more expensive. Obviously the damage wasn't there, so yeah, they weren't fulfilling the role that I guess Games Workshop had. They were thinking, oh yep, now they've got a shooting unit, they're going to be shooting things off the table, which they just don't do thanks to their 4s to hit, 4s to wound, 1 rend, 1 damage. Does not do a lot kind of profile that they were given. Now, I don't hate the fact that they are terrible at damage, but I would love to see the book sort of have more buffs and more utility for the Craven Throne Guard. One thing that I really think they would benefit from is having an ability to maybe retreat and shoot. So a lot of things in the Nighthaunt, well, everything in the Nighthaunt book, thanks to Ethereal, can retreat and charge. So the whole point is, you know, you've got all these ghosts that can't be locked down. If they want to just sort of float out of a combat and then go somewhere else, they can. The problem with the Craven Throne Guard is as soon as they get locked in combat, if you use the retreat, then you can't shoot because you've retreated that turn. So it kind of ruins their feel of being that kind of fluid, ethereal, moving unit that should just be always rolling around the field, always shooting, just always harassing. You know, I can just picture them in my head like cackling away, just shooting things and then just floating off and shooting something else, which they can do perfectly fine as long as they don't get charged, which in this game is big. Like charging things is part of Age of Sigmar, and combat is a huge part of it. So I think, yeah, if they had something like retreat and shoot, that would be really cool. You could then be a bit more creative and a bit more sort of effective with them in the fact that you could move on up, because they've only got the range of 12. One thing I did think about with them is making them more deadly at shooting. So maybe give them like an 18-inch range, maybe just give them a better profile, like 3s and 3s. But then I thought, you know, like I said at the beginning, like you don't want everything, not everything has to be super strong, and I think sort of weight of dice, having them shooting at a short range and just harassing is perfectly fine, but they just need that little bit of utility. So they either need some more buffs from the book, because they don't benefit from anything in this. Basically everything in the Nighthaunt book is sort of +1 to hit with your melee weapons, or plus this with your melee weapons, or it's all sort of melee, melee, melee. Then they just sort of bolted on this one shooting unit, and they don't gain anything apart from if you take Kurdos. They become battle line, but there's so much battle line in this book anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. And they have the rally, the boosted rally, while they have the standard bearer, which is something to incentivize you taking bigger units of Craven Throne Guard. But then if you take bigger units, they're easier to get tied up in combat, and then therefore they lose that ability to shoot unless they're shooting the thing that they're tied in combat with, which might not be what you want. And again, you want to be playing into that feel of the army, and the big thing with Nighthaunt is that retreat and charge. So if they could retreat and shoot, I think that would be fantastic. Your Craven Throne Guard can then pull back, laugh at them, shoot, and then you can have a 20 wave of Grimghast Reapers just smash into the side of them, and then the Craven Throne Guard are like, hey, baited you out, and now they're chopping you up after we shot you. So yeah, I think that would be just a perfectly nice little thing for Craven Throne Guard, would just allow them to do more shooting more of the time, even if they stayed with their sort of semi-ich profile. I don't think they need a big damage spike or to become some sort of broken shooting unit. I think keeping that range down would be great, because if we extended the range, then you've got the problem of they would just be sort of hiding in that backboard, a bit like how Sentinels are, where they can shoot you from like 30 inches away. I know obviously 18 isn't as oppressive as 30, but the fact that they can already ignore line of sight and things, so yeah, if they just had a big range and could shoot through terrain and things that they can't see, then that would probably create problems that way. So I just think retreat and shoot would be great, or retreat and shoot and retreat and charge, like, just give them all of it. And then they can help out with Wave of Terror and fulfill that role at the same time. As a cheeky little fourth, let's dive on in and have a quick look at the Briar Queen, because I think that is a really simple fix. I know I said we were going to do 3 units, but hey, let's do a quick bonus one. So the problem with the Briar Queen herself is her spell is a high casting value. Well, it's an average casting value of 7, which is the average on 2d6. But obviously in Nighthaunt there's no way to gain bonuses to cast unless you are Reikenor yourself. So a 7 is 50-50 at casting, let alone if the enemy has any form of anti-magic. And her spell is cool to be able to half movement, but then it's the 50-50 to cast it, let alone being unbound. Then you have to roll 2d6 for each enemy unit and beat their movement characteristics, so you can fail that, even though a lot of things are sort of movement, say 5-6, which on 2d6 is now in your odds. But it's like, here's a check, here's an unbind check, here's a movement double check, and then all you do is half their thing and occasionally do 1 mortal wound. So the spell's not even that great, to be honest. So I think her spell could just be completely rewritten. If it was just, pick 1 enemy unit, maybe it was casting value 5 or 6, pick 1 enemy unit, half their move, done. If you casting roll of 10 or higher without modifiers, enemy unit takes d3 mortal wounds, and they are half movement. Done. And for the actual thorns themselves, having 2 wound chain rasps is really cool, but they just lack the summonable keyword like other normal chain rasps. So the problem is you've got these 5 guys just running around, 6 of them I think there is. There's 6 of the Thorns of the Briar Queen, which is a nice 12 wound screen. Obviously being 6 models is nice with the new coherency rules, but they do lack that summonable keyword, so there's no way to bring them back, whether you're using sort of Lady O's once per game to heal, whether they're near a spirit torment. There's just nothing really to do with them, so they're just 6 idiots running around, and they are fairly expensive. And like I said, the Briar Queen spell isn't that great. She gets no bonuses to cast, so even just taking something from the spell lore, it's just pointless at that point. You might as well just take the Guardian of Souls, and he's just all round so much better for that +1 to wound aura, and then also being able to take a thing, and his Warscroll spell is easier to cast and it's a lot better. So yeah, I just think she needs a completely different spell. Playing around with people's movement is kind of cool. Maybe she could do a thing where she lowers bravery, like the spell is, pick an enemy unit, casting value 6, make the enemy -2 to bravery, something like that. And then that could pair in nicely with our new Scriptor Mortis that now rolls against bravery and deals mortal wounds. So you see where we're thinking them synergies together. And then so that's just a little thing for the Briar Queen, but I won't go too much longer because this has already been quite a long video just to talk about 4 different little units. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, or join the Lakey Wargames Discord where we talk all things hobby and tactics all the time, and let me know your thoughts on this topic. What units would you like to change in the book? How would you change them? Let me know your thoughts. But as always guys, thanks for watching, stay safe and happy wargaming. Psst. Hey you! Did you know that Lakey Wargames now has an official eBay store? You can buy yourself all kinds of pre-painted and new on sprue hobby goodness and support the channel at the same time. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out. I'd greatly appreciate it, and it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Okay, see you in the next one.